I'm 86 years old, and what I'm about to tell you took me 50 years to actually understand. Not just know in my head, but live in my bones. I've buried my wife. I've buried my best friend. I've watched 3 businesses fail and 1 succeed beyond anything I imagined. I've been rich and I've been broken. I've been surrounded by people and completely alone. And through all of it, I kept making the same mistakes, the same ones you're probably making right now. Not because I was stupid, because I was waiting to be ready, waiting for the right time, waiting to feel certain. At 36, something happened that should have changed everything, but it took me until I was 82 to finally understand what that moment was trying to teach me. Let me tell you about it. The first lesson is something I wish someone had grabbed me by the shoulders and screamed at me when I was 25. It would have saved me decades of misery. You are the main character of your own life. Now, I know that sounds obvious, but let me tell you how badly I got this wrong. I grew up with 2 older brothers. Richard was a doctor, Thomas was an attorney, both successful, both respected, both everything my parents wanted in a son. And me? I wanted to be a carpenter. I loved working with my hands, I loved building things, I loved the smell of sawdust and the satisfaction of making something real. But a carpenter in my family? That wasn't a career. That was a hobby. So at 24, I turned down an apprenticeship with a master craftsman, a man I deeply admired, to take a job in insurance because it looked respectable, because my brothers would approve, because my father would finally stop looking at me like I was the family disappointment. And it didn't stop there. At 28, I married Eleanor, not because I loved her the way a man should love his wife, but because she was the kind of woman my family expected me to marry, educated, proper, from a good family. There was another woman, Sarah. She worked at a bookstore near my office. We'd talk for hours about everything and nothing. She saw me, the real me, the one who still sketched furniture designs in the margins of my insurance reports. I let her go because she wasn't the right choice. I built my entire life around a single question. What will people think? And for 15 years, I had the answer. They thought I was successful. They thought I had it figured out. From the outside, my life looked perfect. From the inside, I was hollow. Eleanor and I divorced when I was 42, not because of fighting, not because of betrayal. We just had nothing. We were 2 strangers who'd been living in the same house, playing the same role for 15 years. One day, she looked at me and said, "Peter, I don't think either of us knows who the other person actually is." She was right. And my brothers, the ones whose approval I'd sacrificed everything for. We had a business dispute when I was 50. Money, inheritance, the usual family poison. They stopped speaking to me. 18 years of silence now. Richard died 2 years ago. We never reconciled. So let me tell you what I learned from all of this. I spent 30 years performing for an audience that wasn't even watching. 30 years trying to impress people who were too busy living their own lives to notice mine. 30 years building someone else's dream because I was terrified of being judged for wanting my own. And when I finally stopped, when I finally said, I don't care anymore what any of you think, nothing happened. Nobody gasped. Nobody disowned me. The world didn't collapse. The only people who actually cared, my second wife, Margaret, my real friends, my children, they didn't want the performance. They wanted me, the real one, the one I'd been hiding for decades. Here's what I wish I'd understood at 25, and the opinions you're chasing, most of them come from people who won't be at your funeral. They're not thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. They're too busy worrying about what you think of them. Notice who you are when nobody's watching, what you think about, what you gravitate toward, what makes you feel alive. That's the person you need to become. Full-time, Not just in private, not just in stolen moments, but out loud in your actual life every single day. Because I promise you, the version of yourself that other people want you to be, it will never make you happy. It will only make you tired. I'm 86 years old, and I still think about Sarah, about the bookstore, about what might have happened if I'd had the courage to choose what I actually wanted instead of what looked good on paper. Don't be 86 and wondering. Be 25 or 35 or 55, whatever you are right now, and choose. Now, the second lesson is harder because it's about something we're taught to ignore. Something I ignored for 40 years, and it cost me my health, my first marriage, and almost my life. Now, the second lesson is harder because it's about something we're taught to ignore. Something I ignored for 40 years. And it cost me my health, my first business, and almost my second marriage. Your body knows things before your mind does. That gut feeling you get when something's off. That tightness in your chest when you're about to make a wrong decision. That voice in your stomach screaming, "Don't do this," while your brain is running the numbers. I learned to silence that voice, and I paid for it every single time. When I was 54, I had a business partner named Richard, sharp guy, great credentials. The deal made perfect sense on paper. But every time we shook hands, my stomach would clench. Every meeting, something felt wrong. I couldn't explain it. There was nothing concrete, just a feeling. So I ignored it. Because feelings aren't facts, right? That's what smart people do. They trust the numbers. 2 years later, Richard disappeared, along with $400,000. My savings, my business, gone. My wife, Margaret, she'd asked me once, early on, "Are you sure about this guy?" And I'd brushed her off. "The numbers work," I said. My gut had been screaming for 2 years. I just refused to listen, but that wasn't enough to teach me. A decade later, 65 years old, I started getting chest pains. Not bad, just... there. I told myself it was stress, anxiety, getting older. 6 months I ignored it. 6 months. Then I collapsed in my kitchen. Blocked artery. They rushed me into surgery. The doctor told Margaret I was lucky to be alive. Another week, maybe 2, and I wouldn't have made it. I almost died because I didn't want to seem weak. Because I told myself my body was overreacting, because I was too proud to listen to what it was trying to tell me. Here's what I know now. That knot in your stomach, it's not weakness, it's wisdom. That exhaustion you keep pushing through, it's not laziness. It's a message. That feeling that something's wrong in your relationship, your job, your health. It probably is. I'm not saying don't think. Think all you want, but don't only think. Your body has been keeping you alive since before you could form a thought. It knows things your brain hasn't caught up to yet. That tightness, that unease, that whisper that says something's not right here. Learn to listen. Before you lose $400,000 to a con man, before you end up on an operating table wondering if you'll see your wife again. Your body is trying to save you. Let it. But here's the lesson that breaks my heart every time I think about it. Because I had this one right in front of me every single day for 52 years. And I missed it over and over again. I missed it. But here's the lesson that breaks my heart every time I think about it, because I had this one right in front of me every single day, and I missed it for decades. Margaret and I were married for 52 years. 52 years of shared meals, shared beds, shared silences. She was my second wife, my best friend, and the only person who ever saw me completely. She died 3 years ago, lung cancer, 8 months from diagnosis to gone. And in those final weeks when we both knew the end was coming, something strange happened. She didn't want to talk about the big things. Not our wedding day, not the house we built together, not the trip to Italy we saved for years to take. She wanted to talk about Sunday mornings, the coffee on the back porch, the way I'd read the newspaper out loud, every headline, every ridiculous story, and she'd pretend to be annoyed. Peter, I can read it myself. But she never stopped me, not once in 52 years. She talked about the walks around the block, no destination, no purpose, just walking, just being next to each other. She talked about the nights we'd stay up too late watching old movies, even though we'd seen them 100 times, even though we both had work in the morning. The small, ordinary, unremarkable moments, the ones I almost missed 1,000 times because I thought I was too busy, too important, too focused on getting somewhere. One night, about 2 weeks before she died, she held my hand and said something I think about every single morning. She said, I wish we'd had more Sundays, just sitting, just being together. That's all I ever really wanted. That sentence undid me, because I realized I'd spent so many years chasing someday. Someday we'll travel more. Someday we'll slow down. Someday I'll stop working so much and we'll just be together. But someday never came. It never does. Someday isn't a destination. It's a lie we tell ourselves so we don't have to be present right now. So we can keep postponing the life we actually want while we chase the life we think we're supposed to build. I thought the big moments were the point. The promotions, the milestones, the achievements you could put on a wall or tell people about at parties, but Margaret taught me the truth. The life you want is built in the moments you're currently rushing through, the breakfast you're eating while checking your phone, the conversation you're half listening to, the person sitting across from you that you haven't really looked at in weeks. Those moments are the whole thing. They're not the filler between the important parts. They are the important parts. I keep a photograph of Margaret on my nightstand. It's from an ordinary Sunday morning, maybe 15 years ago. She's holding a coffee cup, squinting at the camera, telling me to stop taking pictures and just sit down. Nothing special happened that day. I don't even remember what we talked about, but I'd give anything to have that morning back. Just one more ordinary Sunday with her. Stop waiting for the big moments. The small ones are the big ones. You just can't see it until they're gone. But here's the lesson that breaks my heart every time I think about it. Because I had this one right in front of me every single day for 52 years, and I missed it. Over and over again, I missed it. Now the final lesson, and this is the one I want you to carry with you because it's the one that finally set me free. The final lesson, and this is the one that finally set me free. Perfectionism is a trap, and I walked into it willingly for most of my life. I wanted to start a woodworking business. You remember the carpentry I gave up at 24? I never stopped thinking about it. For decades, I'd sketch designs in notebooks. I'd visit workshops. I'd imagine the shop I'd build someday. But I never started because I wasn't ready. I didn't have enough money. I didn't have the right tools. I didn't have the perfect plan. I was 63 years old before I finally built my first piece of furniture to sell. 63. Nearly 40 years of waiting to be ready, and you know what? I wasn't ready. Not even close. My first chairs were crooked. My joints were sloppy. A real craftsman would have laughed. But I made them. And then I made better ones. And then better ones after that. I wasted years waiting for a moment that was never going to come. Ready is a fantasy. It's the story we tell ourselves so we never have to risk being bad at something. But here's what I've learned. The people I admire most aren't the ones who got it right. They're the ones who kept going after they got it wrong. They're the ones who started with shaky hands and figured it out along the way. At 86, I'm still a work in progress. I'm still learning, still making mistakes, still trying to be a little better than I was yesterday. And that's not a failure. That's the whole point. We're not here to arrive. We're not here to reach some finish line where we finally have it all figured out. We're here to grow. That's it. That's the whole thing. Now, the final lesson, and this is the one I want you to carry with you, because it's the one that finally set me free. I'm 86 years old. I've probably got a few years left. Maybe less, maybe more. I stopped trying to predict it, and I don't spend my days thinking about death. That's not where my mind goes anymore. I spend them thinking about this. What am I still waiting for? What conversation am I still putting off? Who do I still need to call? Because even now, even at 86, I catch myself slipping back into old patterns, thinking I'll do it tomorrow, thinking there's still time, thinking I'll be ready soon. The waiting never stops, unless you stop it. If you're watching this, you're still here. Your story isn't finished. The things you've been putting off, the person you've been meaning to become, the words you've been afraid to say. You can start today, not tomorrow, not when the timing is right, not when you feel ready. Today. Because here's what 50 years of mistakes taught me. The perfect moment doesn't exist. It never did. The right time is whenever you decide it is. And the only person whose permission you need is yourself. The lessons I've learned aren't meant to stay with me. They're meant to be passed on. That's why I'm sitting here at 86 talking into a camera in my living room. Because if even one person hears this and stops waiting, stops performing for an audience that isn't watching, stops ignoring what their gut already knows, stops rushing past the moments that actually matter, then every mistake I made was worth something. You are the main character of your own life, so stop rehearsing, stop waiting in the wings, stop telling yourself the show starts someday. Walk onto your own stage and live the thing before you end up where I am, looking back, wishing you'd started when you still thought you had forever. It's not too late, but it will be, so make it count. If this meant something to you, I'd be grateful if you'd share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you want more conversations like this one. And if you have your own story, something you've learned that might help someone else, there's a link in the description. Maybe next time we'll be sharing your wisdom